Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson. Guys, who do you got? Who do you got? And there's some massive moving parts here. And I know we can always do it on paper. We can start talking about the black belts. And we can start juxtaposing the difference between the rubber guard and the Gracie guard. We can have those fun. We can talk about the iron jaws and the fact that they stand out and that they're both endurance masters. I'll hear you on all of those things. There is one meaningful distinction in this fight. Nate Diaz was prepared to close the night for up to 25 minutes, and Tony Ferguson wasn't. We're splitting hairs here, guys, but what else do you got? What is it that you want to tell? Well, if it goes to the ground, okay, finish that thought. What are you going to say, Mr. Knowledgeable in MMA? If they goes to the ground, go ahead and finish that thought. You really don't know who that advances, do you? All right, if they were going to go out there and they were going to go get takedowns, now that's something that you could break down for sure. That would lean towards Tony Ferguson. But for you to find the last takedown that Tony Ferguson successfully did, you got to go back 3.5 years. So all of a sudden, that one just kind of goes out the window. So now you're talking about stand-up fighting. Both of these guys are known for and raved about for their stand-up fighting, but that thought also never really gets finished. It's really not about the combinations. It's really not about the tricky kicks that Tony Ferguson does or that big right hand that Nate Diaz is going to throw you every now and then. What it's really about is how good both their jaws are. Tony Ferguson just does not have a habit of falling down. Nate Diaz just does not have a habit of falling down. One thing that Nate does, because see, as I'm giving you this thought, if you're agreeing with me, if you're going against me, fine. But if you're agreeing with me, if I'm making a level of sense here, then you're thinking disadvantage Ferguson, scheduled for 15 minutes, advantage Diaz, scheduled for 25. One thing, if I was to be critical of Nate, it's a slow starter. And by slow starter, it's not as though he's not warmed up. It's not as though he's revving and ready to go. He manages and he paces himself to come on harder later. Because of that, you could go through Diaz fights where he essentially lets you have the first round. Now, in boxing, that's very real. You guys might remember, for simple terms, but Mayweather versus McGregor. And Conor whipped Floyd's ass, and the boxing community didn't know what to do with it. And Floyd himself, after the fact, said, well, that first round I was going to let him have. I was trying to figure him out. I was trying to measure him. You guys will hear, if you follow boxing, that they're feeling each other out. There's no such thing. There's no coach anywhere in the world, from the amateurs to the pros, that tells you feel him out. It's something that commentators and an announcer have brought in over time, but it's also something because the human body is not made to go 12 rounds. You and your opponent will have a non-verbal agreement. We're going to go and kill 4. You don't give me your best and I won't do it to you. Let's get to the 5th round. We can start figuring this out, which an actual human being can do. So I don't know that I'm ready to concede the fact that Nate knew it was 25 minutes and Tony didn't. I'm not ready to concede that. Because one thing I'd like to see Diaz do more is put his foot down right now. You want to know one fight where Nate did not do this? Nate did not waste any time. I think it was an ovation of the audience. I think it's because he had so many of his fans there and he was raring to go. But one of the great performances that Nate Diaz has ever had was against Anthony Pettis. And it was a 3-round contest, but Nate did not manage his energy. Nate, who's known for 25 minutes, he's known as Mr. Endurance. When he slammed those 25 minutes into 15, there was nobody that could deal with him. I'm not ready to concede that this is an advantage for Nate. It could be helpful based on what you're going to do with that. Tony Ferguson is now out with Jackson Wink. Now, Jackson and Wink, those are legendary names. That's a legendary gym. That is locked down and that is focused. But for sure, Ferguson is going to fight differently. Is that going to be good or is it going to be bad? If he picked up some new, really good skills, but he's only been there for 3.5 months, did he have enough time to perfect them? Now, when the house is on fire, believe me, Tony, like everybody, is going to go back to what they know best. Nobody during this pay-per-view or any other meaningful pay-per-view is going to do any move that they didn't learn roughly 10 years ago. But you don't always start out that way. It is very imaginable that right from the jump, Tony comes out with some kind of a stance that we're all sitting back going, hey, that's not how Tony normally stands. That's very common when guys go to new gyms. And a new gym is not a recipe for defeat. I'm sharing with you, historically speaking, that first round is different. That first round is you trying your new skills, you playing with that new toy, you showing respect to your new coaches by doing what it is they asked you to do. Then once you get hit in the face a few times, you go back to what I'm talking about, that you do what you're familiar with, but it makes for a very interesting first round between these two. A stoppage is highly unlikely. You are looking for a bludgeoning here. This is the fight that the fans wanted. This is the fight that the fans asked for in the first place. There was a thread on the Underground Forum, and this dates back to August of last year, trying to get these guys together. But then you had the politics between it, and where do they go, and what weight class, and what about the rankings? Nate's always one win away from being in a world title fight. Tony Ferguson just had the damn belt. I can't keep track of UFCs. It was UFC 246, and he dropped the belt to Gaethje. I remember that because it was the first sporting event in the world during the pandemic. That wasn't that long ago. And Tony had the strap, looking to stand opposite Khabib. How these two, who only live 48 miles from one another, who mastered and got black belts in juxtaposing styles, rubber guard versus your traditional guard, how these guys that have played at 55 and they played at 70 and are legends, how these guys have avoided each other for all these years is one of the great mysteries of sport. But that mystery and that aversion ends tonight